Hello. So for my final project, I decided to go talk about thrifting. And especially with our in-class texts like Finkelstein talking about how fashion is a system of signs, and how Simmel says that certain fashion pieces are used as ways of adornment. I realized that traditionally and historically, that fashion has been used as a way to differentiate the high class and the low class. And I realized that the high class has normally worn very expensive, very extravagant clothing in order to dazzle away the low class. However, the low class has always been wearing cheaper clothing meant to emulate the higher class. But then I realized, especially with the trend of thrifting nowadays, I realized that the higher class is starting to want and desire more older, more vintage looking clothing. So they go to thrift stores as a way to find those sort of pieces. But then the lower class um, goes to thrift stores because of its economic value, but also as a way of emulating the higher class. And I thought that was a very interesting phenomena in fashion, and I wanted to go talk about that more. So I decided to get 4 friends, and I wanted to talk about their own experiences and their own opinions about fashion, and what their own opinions were about thrifting and their own experiences about that too. So enjoy the video, and I hope you learned something from it.
Yeah, a decent amount.
Absolutely not.
Not really.
Yes.
I tend to thrift more because one, it's sustainable, and two, just hand-me-downs are just cheaper, and it doesn't mean that they're bad quality. Like if you go through the thrift store and you like really take your time, you can find really good products.
Personally, I just find the idea of like wearing other people's clothes not to be my cup of tea. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just personally, I don't feel comfortable doing that. Yeah.
I mean, I guess like it's not really enough like something that I was really into. So then I like more go towards like the malls and like online shopping.
I thrift often to save money and because I believe that thrifting creates a unique sense of fashion.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think people are starting to realize that there's this common understanding that thrifting is now cool, even though people might do it just to be cool, but they are also not only being cool but are helping the environment and not consuming from fast fashion brands.
Yeah, I do, and I don't think it's a bad trend at all. I think it's great for the environment, and yeah, it's pretty great.
I think it's not just thrifted clothes, but the whole vintage look. Because a lot of brands are starting to do like their fake distressing and like fake aging on clothes, especially on jeans, and like they're trying to recreate like vintage T-shirts and like little distressing on the hands and stuff. So I mean like that whole look is like what's popping right now, and especially because like on social media like there's like rappers like Travis Scott and like all that. They're like their clothes are literally like looking aged and like ripped apart. I mean like you've seen the Yeezy collection, like that's what's been in for years now.
Yeah, I definitely believe that thrifting has become sort of a basic trend nowadays. It's more like we don't really look at the brand, more of just kind of bragging oh I thought this and thrifted it. It's kind of it's like a trendy thing to do now.
I think when it comes to anything like fashion trends or whatever, things end up coming back all the time. Like in the 80s we had mom jeans and now they're back. So thrifting is like a new way to make the old way the new way.
So I think it's not the idea that we want second-hand clothes, but it's really the look, and I think what promotes it is especially now, it's like you see all these stars, and the whole look right now is this whole distress and wash look. Like you see Travis Scott, even his merch for his concerts and everything. It's much more. It looks much more like vintage, more like older. You see the Yeezy collection. I mean that whole idea in itself is holes and distressing and this blank washed look, and it's getting memed out that too. And then there's designers like Jerry Lorenzo and all this for Fear of God. These expensive designer brands are trying to get that same look. And so I think that idea of that, oh yeah, this look costs this much, and in this piece it costs so much to make and so much to do this, then why can't I get that same look at a thrift store?
I just think thrifting can be, it's like an activity you can experience with your friends. It's an experience, it's something where it's not just getting it because it's cute, but more out of all the ugly things you find while thrifting, you find this one thing that's valuable, or it's valuable in your eyes. So people that thrift have like certain opinions, what is like good, what's not good, and like you don't really find that when you're just searching for like really basic brands everyone else wears. It's something where even though it's a hand-me-down, you get to wear like I guess the
You know, there's still like a certain pride.
yeah.
I get it.
So yeah.
Overall, my own experiences with fashion and with thrifting has led me to see this new dimension of what thrifting is, especially with how I wear thrifted clothes, and if someone compliments me on that, I feel as if I get the same amount of adoration or the same amount of clout as I would get if I wore something very expensive. And I realize fashion as a system is being completely subverted right now, especially with high-class celebrities like Travis Scott deciding to wear more vintage, more ripped up, more distressed clothing. I realize that the lower class can thrift and get clothing that is vintage, clothing that's distressed, clothing that looks old for a very, very affordable price. And because of that, there's no more, or there's a very little gap between who's rich and who's poor, who's high class and who's low class. And I think that's the step that I want fashion to take. I want fashion to take a new step towards making it so everybody, no matter of how much money they have, of how much clout they might have in society, they can wear something and still be respected for it. And especially as we're seeing now, thrifting and being environmentally friendly is becoming very, very synonymous. And I think that that's another really good step that fashion is taking, especially with the death of many fast fashion brands like Forever 21. I hope to see that in the future, that thrifting becomes more popular, not only because it helps the lower class assimilate with the higher class, but it also is a way for us to become more aware of our environmental impact. It becomes a way that we can start to change the world in our own daily lives, just by choosing what sort of outfits we decide to wear, by choosing what sort of places we decide to shop at. All of these little details are starting to build who we are, no matter who we are as low class or high class. Now I hope that one day fashion especially can become more than just high class or low class. It can become a way of indicating who you are as a person. Do you care about the earth? Do you care about what's happening around you? And if you do, then thrift. If you do, then decide to go shop at places that are more environmentally friendly. And in that, I hope that we can get big businesses to change what they're doing and become more friendly. And that's the goal that I want to see. That's what the future, and that's the future that I want to see in fashion. So thank you for watching and listening to this really, really long video, and happy holidays.